Red light is green, and then we can go.
Who does roll call? Is that you, Steve?
Actually, it's usually you.
Oh, okay.
I can do it for you if you'd like me to.
No. Good. So Caitlin?
Here.
Pete? Here. Bill? Here. Jonathan? Here. Wade here. And we'll have a moment of silence. And we need to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Is that mandated by the state or what?
I believe the state has mandated some formalities, meetings, yes. There's a state mandate, and that's why we're adopting, saying the moment of silence and pledge of
Well,
allegiance.
not necessarily, but it is township procedure
Okay,
for any public meeting that we always say the pledge. We didn't do it during COVID because we didn't have a flag that was up on the screen or anything like that, but
okay.
Okay.
And then we need to consider approving the agenda. All in favor, say aye. Public comment for agenda items only. Is there any public comment?
Speak up now or forever hold your peace.
And consider the approving the minutes from August 5th meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Approved. Public Works report, Parks maintenance.
and I told George to stay home tonight after last night, so I will give you what I know. And I know that they've been working really hard on some of our parks. Particularly, we got some complaints, I think, through social media, and it got fed back to us related to some bees at the parks, particularly at Drexel Lodge. We found that the bridge that goes across the dam area there, we were told that some folks had gotten stung and that it was kind of a swarm of, we originally were told they were potentially bumblebees or hornets. They went out, they found 2 nests that they believe were wasp nests, and they got rid of those. They found a 3rd nest that was very large, and we actually had to bring in 2 different exterminators to get rid of it, because the first exterminator didn't have the equipment to get back into where it was. It was actually up underneath the walkway, but where it was back, had to go down and back up again to the area where there's a piece of concrete, and it was up in behind the piece of concrete. It was up on the top of the concrete, up and underneath the deck. And so we finally got that treated and got rid of that. But my understanding is that there was still a fair amount of swarming by bumblebees and potentially maybe some carpenter bees. And so they are actually looking at having to tear all the railings off of the thing to see if they're have actually gotten into the railing on the walkway. So for right now, at least, I didn't ask George about it today, but as of 3 days ago, it was still closed to people. I think it was still closed last night when I went through. What I could see the yellow tape down there was still there. And so that's why it's closed. They did go out. I asked them to go out to all the parks and to check all of the playground equipment and things like that to make sure we didn't have any bees up underneath or any wasps or whatever. And they have done that. We're doing kind of a full-on search. We found a very large nest out in the front of this building that was a large wasp nest. And so they're very prevalent this year. And I've been watching a lot of our flowering, pollinating kind of places. And, you know, I have some flowers in the front of our house, and I've got 5 or 6 different variety of bees and wasps and everything right in the front of my home. And just, you know, who are coming in and pollinating. So we just have a lot right now. And so we're doing the best we can. But we're being very cautious, particularly on that walkway, because even though we've removed 3 sources, and we think we found this 4th source, we still are having more. And so that's why it's still closed. It's out of an abundance of caution until we can figure out where the problems are. We may end up having to take it apart.
Are bees still endangered so that they have to move them and can't kill them?
If it's depending on which ones they are, potentially, but we took out 2 wasp nests. We understand that's not a problem. The yellow jacket nest, my understanding, there was not a problem with, and we took those out. That was the 2. The carpenter bees, that may be an issue. I don't know, but
They don't stink.
No, I don't think that they're endangered at all.
Honeybees are.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
it's just
Yeah.
honeybees, yeah.
I was
So-
actually at that event in Boston, I took care of the family that was there, actually right after yoga. And the way Parks and Rec Public Works was there 5:30 the next morning, was there for hours, did a phenomenal job dressing it. They really should be applauded because
They
it's
have.
going to be out beyond.
They've been really, it's not been an easy year for a lot of reasons. And so they've done a really good job there. You know, George and I talked, we've not done everything we wanted to do in the parks this summer. Just our time just didn't allow based on all the other things that they had to do in maintaining roads and some other stuff. And so, but they are looking at trying to get a few more things done. But as a whole, the maintenance has gone very well at the parks. I think most of the parks have been able to stay open. The good news is, even in spite of the storm we had last night, we were able to open everything back up today. You know, people I'm sure have seen the pond. The pond is very discolored as all of them are. But I will say, I watched the situation from various points around town as I drove around last night. Yes, there's some sediment in there, but in light of all the sediment that could have been in the pond today, it was very minimal. And it didn't change the fact that it looks brown, but the PPG Equus did a really nice job of preparing for the storm. And it really wasn't until the later hours after we'd already had, you know, 3+ inches that they finally, there was no place left for the water to go. It had to come off the property. And so that's what happened.
And they did do some extra work, if they were notified, like 3 months ago.
Yeah, they've done a lot of extra work, and they were out there. We met with them on Tuesday. No, we met with them on Monday, not me, but the engineers met with them on Monday and asked them to do certain things, preparing specifically for this storm, and they did everything they were asked.
AC perspective, there was a tour done and there has been and in doing incredible, making sure they're held to the task and being has done a really good job holding them accountable for anything and making sure if there's anything or take preemptive measures instead of reacting.
There's
specific spot where we're talking about where they did the work? Is that the corner of like Winding Way and 252? Is that?
Yeah, it's that area.
Yeah.
Yeah, that very corner, if you notice, it's a widened basin. Yeah, it's holding the water. So then discussion regarding pop-up park at St. Albans. I toured it with Paul and Lori the other night. Apparently they're bringing in benches and putting them in a parking lot, and then they're going to have an area like a beer garden area as well. It's a grassy area. So I think that they're looking for support for that. If anybody wants to volunteer, reach out to Paul.
I think if I can for just a minute. So the idea of this park is to test the idea. Would a park do well at the circle? And, you know, would people use it? And would it be a place that people would go to if they got something, let's say from Luigi and Giovanni's or one of the other food sources around? Would they go and sit there, or would they go to a coffee shop and just go and sit? And so that's the purpose. It's going to be there for 3 weeks. There is some furniture coming in. As Wade said, it's all crafted out of old pallets. And so, you know, it's a kind of a reuse of a resource that's there. And so,
The new Transfer business.
Rustic?
Rustic, yep, they're doing this.
yeah, rustic, yeah. And so, like I said, all that's going to be set up for 3 weeks for people to just stop and enjoy, but then there'll be an event on September 18th as a kind of a big day to celebrate there and just to get the town together. Of course, assuming that COVID isn't an issue or that makes us do something different at that point. But anyway, it's going to be an opportunity for people to be there and gather together and have a community experience there at the circle.
So when are you planning on setting that up? Do you know, Steve? When?
The Thursday?
Because that's
I
come
think
up.
it's the Thursday before. I'm looking for
Thursday,
the date. I believe it's the 16th.
Is that going to be in the circle, or is that?
It's, so the pop-up park is, there's a spot between the kind of the Remax parking lot and I forget, is it Sebastian's?
Sebastian Salon.
Salon. There's a green area there. And in addition to that, the property owner of the Remax has agreed that we can take the 3 parking places that are right along that green area there. And so that's where the park area will be. Then on the 18th, when we do the community day, we will actually shut down half of the circle. So there'll be half the circle shut down, and then
Chapel Road.
pretty much all of Chapel Road will be shut down.
The whole west side of the circle.
Okay.
Be open. To discuss strategy for achieving sustainability goals assigned to parks and recreation.
So if you don't mind, I'll take the
Yes,
lead on this.
yes.
So the township, back in May, the Board of Supervisors voted to participate in the PA Sustainability Program. And we've labeled it Sustainable Newtown. And so it is a program that is designed, one, to hit a certification level of, you know, are you doing certain things to be sustainable long-term? Does everybody at least have a copy of this? And so this document, if you look at it, I think it's like 130 different possible best practices. We're not going to get them all. I don't think that's our goal, but our goal is to get the ones that make sense to Newtown. And I say the ones that make sense. Some of these, I read them and I'm like, they're just not who we are as a community, and so we wouldn't do them. I went through with the staff, but if you want to blame anybody, blame me, because I'm the one that did it. I went through and looked at the document, and I assigned to the document a department from the township staff that would be responsible, a committee based on what the action, what the best practice was, and then I tried to assign somebody specific to be responsible initially to help guide us through the process. As part of that, we've made some decisions internally of how to handle this. And so one of the things we're doing is the board has agreed, we brought Steve on, and Steve is going to take some of the role that Suzanne has been doing and helping me. And so you're going to start hearing and seeing Steve's name a lot more. We thought we would make it nice and confusing. That if you called the phone and asked for Steve, Steve would answer and say, yes, that's me. And most people are probably going to want me, but that's okay. We'll figure that out. But Steve's going to be really doing some of the, like, keeping my calendar and doing all of those kind of things, helping meetings get set and that kind of stuff. A lot of the stuff that Suzanne has done, with the idea that Suzanne is going to become the kind of the chairperson, and I say, you know, it's kind of the driving force behind the sustainability achievement that we're after. Because I don't see us achieving this in one day, in 1 year. This is something we're going to have to work on over time, and it's going to have to work with our strategic plan. And so the idea is to take things that are in our strategic plan already, make sure they're part of what we're doing here. And if it doesn't fit in our strategic plan, then we probably won't do it. You know, this doesn't make sense. So all that being said, there are a handful of items that kind of came up for Parks and Rec as being things that we would look at.
And Steve did send us an email with those.
Yes. And I don't know if he sent you all of them, but I think he at least kind of got you started on some of the ones that were ones to look at. I'm looking here. The first ones I see would be equivalent to page 3. They're not numbered, but if I say that this is page 1, the back of it's page 2, page 3. If I look down under 7B, it talks about outdoor recreation, amenities, and lifestyles are promoted. And, you know, I think we kind of do that already. But, you know, what I would like as we kind of look at this is kind of say, you know, we're looking at it. Are we doing it consistently? This is one of those ones that how are we working with Markville Newtown Leisure Services, because they're doing the same thing. And I do think I could say that we're doing that today. And we would say yes, but in addition to just saying yes to that, we need to show a link to some of the things we're doing. And so we might show a link to yoga in the park. We might show a link to some of the other events that the park is doing, that you all are doing, but also things that are being done by Markville Newtown Leisure, because those all together help us to achieve that particular experience.
Healthy communities.
The next one down that I see is your area is, you know, use of pesticides, herbicides being monitored and reduced by all municipal departments for which we use them. You know, and obviously the primary place is going to happen is through Public Works, but, you know, through conversation with this group and conversation with the EAC, how do we do that more effectively and still try to do the things that need to be done? You know, when you're exterminating for bees, we went and we did what we needed to do, just to, you know, the wasp and the stuff for the safety. And I'm not sure we used all the best practices there, but we did what we needed to get, because particularly for the one spot, getting in there was very difficult. It wasn't as easy to do as some tasks.
Right.
So anyway, giving you that as an example, we're pretty careful already how we use certain things, weed killer and things like that. But it's like, we'll take an examination, and what we'll do is we'll ask the Public Works to report back to you how we do that in the park and have you review it. and say, you know, maybe we could do this, it would be a better practice, and we'll look into that. If you go basically 3 pages up, so that's page 3, 4, 5, back to page 6 is another item. And it says it's 18F. It's under environmental stewardship, green infrastructure, sustainable landscape maintenance practices are in place for parks and municipal grounds. And again, looking at what does that look like? How are we doing that? And that's a lot of that, again, I think we're already trying to do,
Right.
but, you know, taking a real examination, how's our policy set? What is it that we say are the plantings that we're going to plant? How is that, and how is it expected that they're maintained? Okay,
And the fact that they're now leaving a little bit of grass around the streams.
yeah,
Yeah, the
For
riparian buffers
stormwater
and the
runoff.
native plants would have been.
Exactly.
A little bit of a riparian buffer.
and then the next page, which I think is page 7, if I counted right. I'm looking at item number 21A. Trails for walking and biking have been developed and maintained, and I know that's actually going to move over to the Trails Committee. But, and that was not in place when I first did this back in May. But particularly within the parks, we need to really examine what does that look like within our parks? Do we make it so it's a place where people can bike to? Do we have bike racks within the park so somebody can come in and leave their bike and enjoy the park while they're there, you know, and not have to be worried, is my bike going to be still there when I come back? You know, so those are kind of things that I think would be a part of that. And then down, the next line down is bike, or 2 down, 21D, I guess it's 3 down. Bike lanes where shared roadways are being developed and shared road education and campaign. Again, that piece I've actually moved over to the trails. So I just wanted, just so you know, even though it says parks, I haven't had a chance to go back and really update the sheet, but we will. And it'll be with the new committee. So those are the ones that kind of fall specifically in your area. You might look through here and say, you know, as parks, we could really help with item number 22F or whatever. And I don't know what I picked, but land development rights, probably not that one. But you may see one that you think you could either help the EAC with, you can help the Trails Committee with, you might be able to help the Shade Tree Committee. And so the idea, though, is that between this and our strategic plan, these are going to become driving documents for who we are and what we do. And, you know, we really should be asking our questions when we talk about budget dollars, when we talk about what we're doing. Does what we're asking for, does what we want to do fit the strategic plan? Does it, or does it fit the sustainability part that we're trying to accomplish? And if it doesn't, then we need to ask the question, why are we going to do it? What's the compelling reason, if it doesn't fit in one of those documents, why we're moving in that direction? And I got to tell you, as broad as our strategic plan is, there's a lot of things that this group can do that will fit in it. Bocce ball fits perfect. You know, if you said we were trying to create a place to go play soccer, that would fit perfect. So there's a lot of things that will fit. You know, it doesn't necessarily specifically say bocce ball court, but it's, if you look at what the outcomes are, what we're trying to achieve, you're going to see that it fits well. And some of that will fit here for sustainability, particularly when we go back and talk about the first one that I mentioned, you know, about outdoor recreation opportunities and amenities.
Yeah.
That provide a lifestyle and they're promoted, you know. And so,
Well, just mention what you're saying about the trails too. You getting the bike rack, but also maybe a trash receptacle, because the person who's coming with the bike is going to have trash. So putting those pieces together will be really helpful, because I don't know if Steve really kind of explained to you the sustainability PA, what that meant is EAC really kind of was looking at Ready for 100. And it was a really impressive of the Board of Supervisors to take on the Sustainability PA Challenge. And they committed to really, it's really honorable of what they have said that they are going to do by 2035 and their specific goals that they have are trying to achieve. So that's why it's really important that we get on board and helping them, because EAC has kind of identified this as a critical area for our township. And the more that the residents and the parks and every committee buy into the Sustainability PA program, it'll help all of us achieve those goals.
So for this exercise, you kind of want us to go through whatever Steve has sent us and get back to him with whatever we can kind of prove that we've met these goals.
Well, actually, we're going to do it through this meeting
Okay,
here.
okay,
And as we work through that, not tonight, I
Okay.
should say through this committee, I just want to remember that we do, if we're acting outside of this meeting, if you're acting outside of this meeting as board members, you can't do it as a group, right? You can't do it as 3 or more of you, because when you do, you're having a meeting or you're making a decision, and so that's against the Sunshine Act. So you may send something to Steve that we'll put it on this meeting agenda for you guys to discuss at the next meeting as a group and
Okay.
take an action on.
okay.
Okay, because that's how we have to do business. We can't do business separate and apart from that. So, but yes,
But when I go home tonight or whenever, I'm going to sit down and look at this and try and think of ways that, the outdoor recreation opportunity, like we've posted on Facebook, the concerts. So
yeah,
there's a link that we can put to that Facebook page. So that's something I'm going to look at, and I'm going to
Yep.
send that to Steve and
yeah,
CC
that's
everything.
fine.
Okay.
That kind of stuff
Okay.
is all good.
All right.
And Steve will help bring that together, and then we'll talk about it as a group, whether or not we think we've actually achieved what it is that it says here. So like it says, the outdoor opportunities, amenities, and lifestyles are promoted. Are we really doing that? Or are we, as a group, if we all agree, then we'll take it back to the Board of Supervisors, and if they also agree, then it'll become part of our score.
Okay.
So I don't want to, some of these are really easy for me to say we do. I mean, I look at it and I go, yeah. If I look at the very first one on the very first page, we hire professional staff to handle our finances. I know we've done that, but I want to make sure that the Finance Committee agrees with it and that the Board of Supervisors agrees with it, not just Steve Neese saying that it was done. It's like, we're looking at it that before we put it up, there's several groups that have looked at it and said, yes, we sign off on that and agree that that we really have achieved it. It isn't just something we say we did.
Okay.
We've looked at the facts and we've reviewed it and we say, yes, this really is what's happened. My just personal on this, I think we're going to score somewhere between bronze and silver on the first go out, just looking at through all the things in here. My ultimate goal would be that we would score platinum. I mean, that's what I'd like to see us do. But I don't want to score platinum just to say we scored platinum. I want to score platinum because it fits with who we are as our strategic plan. It fits with our mission statement. It fits with our vision statement, and it makes sense. Not just to say we did it.
Yes.
It's all a matter of, as we take each step moving in that direction, it makes sense. It fits who we are as a township.
And you've documented to some extent.
And we've documented to some extent. You can see on the first page, so for an example, if we have to get 1 to 34 points to be an associate, right? You see that on the very first page at the very
Right.
top?
Oh, yeah.
And it says you have to have 1 to 34 points. I think there's no question we'll be able to do that. I've kind of gone through here and said, we'll score that. And we have to 10% of what we say we did, we have to put a link to. And then on the next one down, you have to do 30. The next one down, you have to do 50. My point would be, if I can't put a link to it, I probably shouldn't say I did it. And so, and if I can't find some way to prove that it's there, then I probably ought to really ask my question, did I really do it? You know, like for the first one, I said, Rich, we need to make sure your resume is updated, and we're gonna put your resume as part of that, but also the resume of the staff that works for you. You know, so that it shows that's what it is. And, you know, the other part of that will be that probably my resume will be there because my background was finance before I ever came. And so that, you know, those kind of things will be a part, that we have that as part of who we are and why we're here together and what we're doing. And so, yes, that's it. And then the next one, you know, we'll just take each one of these, and you notice I put yes for those items at this point on that first page. All of those I know we do, right? But we haven't got to the point that we have all of those links provided. And until we do, I'm not counting them for much of anything until we go back and do that. Okay, does that give you an example of what I'm looking for?
So you need about like 2 to 3 links or artifacts or pieces of evidence.
It may be one.
Okay.
You know, for example, you know, the one for 1C, it says that we don't use capital related borrowings for daily expenses. That's going to be a spreadsheet that shows how we've used every borrowing we've ever done. So that at least in the last 6 years since I've been here, how we borrowed the money, what we borrowed it for, and how it was used. And I can tell you, I know we didn't use it for daily expenses, you know, because I'm a fanatic about not using borrowings for daily expenses, at least not for this. You know, when you're borrowing for capital, you don't use it to do daily stuff. You don't use it to do something that should come out of the operations budget in that way.
You mean kind of like buying lunch for everybody?
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. That would not be a good thing.
No.
But I mean, like, I would even argue, like, if we were doing something that was just maintenance versus doing something that improved something, I would say it's not enough just to do maintenance. You gotta actually improve the life of whatever it is that you're doing for. Changing the oil on a car is not the same as buying the car.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Colors and money shouldn't be mixed.
Huh?
Colors of money should not be mixed.
Exactly. And I can tell you, you know, we can prove that because we're really fanatical about not doing that. But it's those that will be the example. So something will be a single link, something may be 2 or 3 links, something may be a link to an area that has 2 or 3 items. Any other questions about how we're doing this, what we're doing? So that's where we're headed. That's what we're trying to accomplish. And it really is talking about being sustainable, not just for the fact that it's an award or whatever, but really, as we think about who we are as a community, one of the things that came out of the strategic plan was that people wanted us to look at those kind of things. And this particular piece allows us to look at many of the things that came out of the strategic plan. And that's why we chose this one versus the Ready for 100.
Thank you for the reading material.
You're welcome.
And there are other things on here that could apply to Parks and Rec. I did review it. So the basketball court update, we still have not had an official date from the school. She did reach back out, and you know, she is planning it. It's just a matter of COVID restrictions and a date. I'm going to try and use the bus and have the students do it on an actual field trip day so that they get counted for class and be able to do the work as well, but still kind of up in the air. And the mural at Drexel Lodge, they did do the lines on the outside of the walls. I think it's sometime in September.
September, I think 16th, I believe.
16.
Yeah,
That's what they said.
They're gonna come in and paint, apply the rest of the paint to it. I believe George has a list. I'm not sure if he's purchased the paint yet. And there's supplies as well that are required. So. And as soon as I, have anything firm, I'll send it out to the committee, letting them know. Communication boards update. Do you know if they arrived yet, Steve? Or?
They have arrived.
Wow, how about that? Huh?
So they're over at the Public Works Building. George has a scout that has a project that they want to do. I don't know if it's for Eagle Scout or if it's a, Scouts have projects that Star and Light as well as they're working up. So I don't know which level of scout project this is, but I know that there's a scout that's looking for the project and that wants to install the boards. George has gone out and purchased the wooden post that the plastic sleeve will slide down on. And also he's purchased something, I forget what he said, some kind of channel for across the top so it keeps the water out from the
Very
board.
nice.
So they're here, they're ready. As soon as we hear back, if the scout doesn't come forward real quickly, we may go ahead and move forward with them and get them just in.
So as far as the location
Where are they?
in relation to the playground or other activities, should we look for someone to help us with that? Like the school teacher who proposed these?
I think George is working with the gal who proposed them.
Okay,
For recommendations as to where we
Where to
go.
place them? Okay.
I will check with that, but if this group wants to weigh in more than just letting her give us direction, we can do that.
I have no knowledge personally. I mean, Bill.
No,
Okay.
I think teacher is a great idea.
Okay. The bocce ball courts. I did talk to Al from Delmont. He's been extremely busy. He's had a lot of turnover with his employees, so he's kind of stressed right now. I'm going to reach out to him this week again and try and set something up. We merely have to go there and figure out what he has to do, what equipment he needs to bring in, and then he's going to commit to some date. We might need volunteers for that as well to help us. So the Brookside Park improvements. So we are, I don't know where we're at.
Well, I contacted Mainline Awning, and they connected me with Anchor Industries to look at the Funbella,
Yeah.
And what they said was that it would cost about $6,000 for each one. So I thought I remembered when I was online that I saw something that was around $4,000. But they quoted to me $6,000, and then George would have to pour the concrete to get it set in the ground so it would be really solid. So in any event, I think we should, as a park group here and board, make a recommendation for the budget to have money in it for at least one umbrella.
The one umbrella.
And they have, if you look at that website, Anchor Industries, they have many different options for shade, including putting up square,
Sunshade, yeah.
making
The sail
a
shades.
gazebo, like,
Yeah.
you know, they have sails of various shapes and sizes, and then they have several designs of these umbrellas, and they're really beautiful. And
Colorful.
and they're big, and they would provide shade. And I think in terms of 7 here that you pointed out, I mean, it would just be something for the healthy population. A grandparent could go there and sit in the shade and have the baby or the child playing. But as it is, parents as well who are older, who, if you're sitting in the sun,
Right.
you know, it's really very difficult, especially when you have high humidity.
There is no shade there.
You become
Yes, there's no
dehydrated.
shade. Yes.
Yeah. So I think we should, I would like to propose that we make, we request $12,000.
It looks like for a 12-foot funbrella, it's about a little over 3,000, and for a 20-foot, it's about 6,000.
That's what they said at mainline awning, but I think we could probably do better shopping around. There are actually about 10 vendors within maybe 3 or 4 miles of the parks that actually sell these things, you know, that are representatives of the company. The other thing is, as a township, I don't know that we can't go directly to the manufacturer
Yeah,
and
so.
maybe get a deal.
So we have limits that we can do. So if it's under, I think it's, I forget the exact number this year. I think it's 11,200, but don't quote me on that. We can go buy it. If it's over that amount, but less than 20,000, we can do it with 3 quotes. If it's over 20,000, we have to go out for an RFP. However, some of these groups have gone and are on the state contract through CoStars, and then we don't have to go through the bidding process at all. They've already given the best price to the state, and then we just go buy under that
So they're the
contract.
preferred vendor then.
They're like a preferred vendor. So
How do we
would-
find, can we find that out?
we will work on that. I'll ask Steve to help us kind of chase that down. If you would send Steve a link to the exact one that you're looking for, we'll start chasing that down on the pricing.
Okay.
Because I thought last time we discussed that we were going to have a tree added, and then George mentioned that we were going to have it, you know, instead of, while we were looking at having a proper shade, which we all want, I understood that because the master plan, which will eventually be happening at Brookside, and because that layout may or may not change, there were some concerns of whether or not you really wanted to invest money into a design that may or might not change. So we were going to have an interim solution of a kind of like a patio type of umbrella over right between the table and a tree. And that was kind of a temporary solution that was suggested.
We did discuss it, so I'm not sure how long it would be before we did a master plan
Right.
on the park itself and when you could
The
implement.
other thing is if you put a umbrella in, all you have to do to move it is dig up the concrete.
Yeah.
And so it's not temporary. It could potentially be permanent and be moved to another park
Okay.
also. But that
I-
Brookside is a killer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think the
It's
challenge at Brookside is so great.
Mhm.
And, you know, my goal, personal goal would be to have a master plan for every park, that we would know what the plan was to do that. But for those, I know several of you served on the master plan study for Greer Park. And, you know, I think we're going to talk about that in a minute. And so, and I'll save some of that for them, but, you know,
Big time.
that is like a 3 or 4 phase project to do, and it's multi-million dollars to accomplish the whole thing. We have a master plan park for the park for the Meadow Preserve. That's a $5 million project to do that thing. So though I want a master plan for every park, the reality is that we're going to slow down on doing the master plans until we can start implementing some of the plans we've already put in place, because it doesn't make sense to spend $500,000 having master plans,
Nothing to
because
show.
that's about what it would cost to do all the parks, and then never do anything, right? So we want to start making some things happen.
Right.
So I think it's appropriate to say that it, like a park like Brookside, even though I think it's, you know, a park that we definitely want a master plan for, something like this would be a good solution on a temporary basis. You know, it is $6,000. And even let's say it's a cost, and if you do 2 at 12,000, it's, when you look at parks that, you know, park systems that are costing us a couple million, That's not a major investment in what we're doing. And so it's one of the reasons why we didn't immediately replace the playground equipment at Greer was 70 or 80,000. That's a lot of money before you go throw back where we're gonna put it. Now that we kind of know where we're gonna put it, we could start working on that piece, even though we're not able to do everything. So, you know, it is an option, but I do think that it's a good point that if it's just mounted in concrete and we can pick that up, maybe not be able to even take the concrete, but pick it out from the concrete, pull the concrete out and go, it's an option.
So do we think, I don't know, how big would 20 foot be in that area, and where would that area be? That would be like at the entrance, I assume. That's
I think
where
we
most
talked
green-
about
It could be
the other
put inside the fence and somewhere near the play area so that a parent or a grandparent can watch the kids and be in the shade.
Most of that seating area is in, as soon as you walk in, I believe, isn't it?
No, there's two. There's the back bench.
Both ends.
There's
There's
a
the little-
table back over here.
The little chess table when you first walk in,
Yep,
and then beyond the playground and the dinosaurs on the floor, on the ground, before you get to the swings, there's another bench.
Right.
Or maybe it's right between the swings and the playground.
There's a
It's that
bench
second
here, there's a table here, and then there's the bench back here, and here's the play area. But I did ask if we could have those sails over the play area, because it's great for the
That's where I was
grandparents.
going.
The slides get hot.
The children are the ones that are in the intense heat, and it would be nice, to have some supplemental trees as well. We didn't want to break up, we don't want to clear through from the things, but there's definitely some area if we can take some of the heat off for the kids, because they're the ones who I've spoken to had said the work, it's hardest for the kids.
I feel like it's a kind of a two-piece. You need the triangle shades over top of the playground because it's the slides and some of the equipment are just non-usable in the middle of the summer. And then you need something for the parents, the grandparents, whoever's supervising the children, just to give them a little reprieve. So I don't know if it would be a 20 or 12 foot. I'd have to kind of be in the space to see.
But I thought we looked at, you could do the cabling, and you would have your cable and you could set your sails up and set them over the key areas that you wanted to. So all you need to do is run your cable for the perimeter and put your sails in the area, the triangles, and you can get them 10 feet, 12 feet, whatever depth distance, and you set them over the areas that you want them to be. So there's so much flexibility with them. There's ways that you don't have to have a permanent structure. It wouldn't hold, it's not going to hold the snow and things like that. They're just permeable. You can even take them off during the dead of winter if you want to, but if you've ever gone to any of those Sesame Place and those type of parks, you'll see them all the time in play areas, and they're just diffusing the light, not necessarily blocking them totally, but they bring down the level of heat.
That would be ideal. You mentioned that, I want to say at the June meeting.
Yeah, so there's kind of two issues, right? The parents sitting in the heat. And the
Well, what we
playground.
saw at the Mainline Unitarian Church,
Yes.
which is the name of that other church down the road, St.
St. David's.
David's.
Yeah.
And we thought it belonged to St. David's because it's called a St. David's preschool. But in fact, it's an independent private preschool. And so anyway, I contacted the administrator of that. And that's how I got connected with me. Money. But the 20 foot really is close to where the kids play and helps with the kids. But personally, I think there's no reason why we can't have a funbrella, which would add color and design and enhance the appearance of it. And also maybe have some sails that are set up on cables. Because you look at this website, they have all kinds of stuff,
But I think that, so the funbrella would kind of be over where the parents would be more over the sitting area.
Yeah,
In our
not
case.
over the actual play area, but I think
The
Sheila's
sails.
idea of if you want to shield the kids, of putting it somehow, I don't know how it's gonna be.
You could, I looked at the trees, you could cable it off the trees, or you could actually get like the actual poles that we bought for the back things. They could be there, or you can get commercial grade steel and you just run the cable from there. I'm just surprised, like you'll see them if you go to any of the, like,
There's one in Avon, they're everywhere.
they're everywhere.
This-
I mean,
The triangular shaped
you are-
canvas
I
shells,
think-
I think we've all
the
seen.
key, you know, just to help a little bit here. I think the key is if you decide that's what you want to do, we'll work either with our public works team. If they can't figure it out, we'll bring somebody in who can figure out how we would put these up.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
But
I
the
can tell
focus
you-
should not be on an umbrella or sail. The focus should be on shade.
exactly.
Yeah,
And it's the shade that provides the health and safety for the older folks, young folks, middle-aged folks, whatever.
Right, and I'd
Because-
like trees to be added into that because that's a natural shade and that's a really nice, comfortable shade too, to bring in that, in that nice environment, let's make it cozy. And it would be enjoyable for everybody. Because we lost the tree that was in the back there, and so,
Right.
and the shrubs out front, we lost some of them, so if we could kind of soften it up a little bit with some flowers, and I thought it'd really be nice.
And then Caitlin had also researched some activity equipment that we could put in that triangle shape that's grass. And most of it was very reasonably priced, and it wasn't that much.
George gave me the link, so it's through one of the CoStar companies.
right.
The pricing wasn't listed on the website that I saw, but I think that it would be, yeah, well under $4,000, $3,000.
Yeah, it wasn't much. So do you want us to then write up the play equipment and the shade? And
Yeah,
sit-
I think, we talked, I think at the last committee on committees meeting, or I think we're calling it the township organization meeting, that, we're wanting all the township organizations to submit their budgets.
Okay.
And so if that's something that you want, I would put, Brookside Park, and I would put a dollar amount that you think will cover what it is that you want to do. And if it's shade, I break that out as one sheet. And then if it's actually an activity kind of thing or something, I'd break that out as a different sheet.
Okay. So I'll create two sheets, and when I send them in, I'll CC everyone. Might contact you guys to get some
And
information.
actually, if we put in 12,000, go with one umbrella and some, actually, when I got back to them, I said, a few or two medium-sized sails and one umbrella. The umbrella alone was 6,000. I had a little bit of a shock.
Let me just say, I'm not surprised. None of this stuff is inexpensive.
Yeah.
No, I guess not. It was a little more than I thought it was.
Depending on the layout, maybe it makes sense if you're gonna spend 6,000, maybe it makes sense to do two 12-foot umbrellas so that it covers. And, if you have a couple families there, they may not all be huddled together, especially, during a pandemic, but, just anyway, maybe it's helpful to have a 12-foot here and a 12-foot here.
Well, what would be nice is if we could get some representative or one of the vendors, the preferred vendors, come out and look at the property and make the best recommendation for us for what would accomplish the shade that we want.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, it would.
So if you'll figure out like, without going over the top, but like, let's assume that, I forget what you said the 12-foot umbrellas were, but. let's say
3,000 versus
3,000.
6,000.
Or the 3,000 versus 6. So that's not a big deal. It doesn't matter if you put 6 or you put 3. If it was 4 and 4, I'd say build it off of 8 instead of 6,000. And then figure out what the sales, like what you think you want and just a rough price. We can bring out somebody to give us a design and take care of all that. But we'll have a marketplace in the budget for what we think it's going to cost. Just remember, if we have to do installation, if we have to do concrete and stuff like that, just check with George, so we can add that kind of amount of money in as well. Because typically what we budget is what we have to spend. Unlike, like a business can say that's just a guideline. For us, that's the authority to spend when the board passes that amount of money. And so we have to stay within that authority, with that, or we have to go back and ask for more. Not that we can't go back and ask for more from time to time, but as a whole, we want to be able to just say this is what it's going to cost. So I'd rather get to the end of the project and you say you think it's going to cost 15,000 and it costs 14, than to get to the end of the project and say it costs 16,000 when we said it was 15, if that makes sense.
And so Greer Park update, we still have not heard from,
Well, we've heard from one.
oh, we did?
We heard from Fish and Wildlife. We did not get that grant. And that's a big deal because that one actually drove the rest of the project, because that was the one that moved the stream. And so we're kind of trying to decide where to go from here. I'm going to be making a recommendation to the board on the 13th, what I think we need to do. So one option is the township were to just go ahead and move forward and pay for that part of the project. And then if we got the other two grants, we could continue to move forward. That particular piece of the grant, I believe, was like 286, 270, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
So it was a kind of a big nut, but it's the driver for the park.
Right.
Without moving the stream, I think we could get the boardwalk grant, but the boardwalk grant doesn't do any good if we haven't moved the stream and put the other water feature in. So we're just trying to work through that. So we did get that message, and I'm going to meet with them to find out why we didn't get it. And so we understand that.
All right.
So this goes back to my earlier comment that I made. You know, we may want to start looking and saying, could we figure out, at least from the plan, how to engineer the place where the playground goes? Because we do have money set aside for the playground. And so, you know, maybe it's worth trying to look to see if we could go ahead and do that. I don't know if it's enough money to do the whole thing, but, you know, maybe we could work on something and make it a, you know, $100,000 to $120,000 project, and at least get the playground in while we're waiting to get the next step. Maybe not everything, but at least, you know, start putting the new equipment in and get things ready.
Which would go a long way with the public.
Yeah, I think, again, I want to take a bite out of this somewhere, because I think that people want to see something happen, you know, and so this is an opportunity to do that.
What are the other two grants we're waiting?
So the one grant was Fish and Wildlife that helped us go through the stream.
Yeah.
Then there was a DCNR grant that was going to help us put in kind of the water feature and a couple of the trails and things like that into play. And then we went through DCED for the boardwalk / pier off of the water feature. And so I kind of got the impression that the one for the pier is waiting for some information from me, but they kind of think we could get that one. I just don't think it makes sense to get that one if we can't move forward on the other, because
You need the water.
I need the water to
have
be
the
where it's
fishing
gonna
pier.
be before I put the pier in, you know, I mean, it just makes sense. So we'll work through that, we'll figure it out. But at least if we could come back and say, yeah, we're not gonna do that this round, but we get ourselves in place for the next round of funding. And that's why I'm gonna meet with them, hopefully between now and the 13th, so I know why we didn't get it, and then we can make better adjustments to hopefully get it next time.
Public events, yoga in the park.
We had a fabulous season all year. I mean, it was really phenomenal. And Wednesday was our last, it was the Zumbini night. And because of the weather, we obviously had to cancel it. But what we did, we communicated that in so many different ways. And we made sure that we were concerned because it was in Community Magazine and it was a public event and we do have rain or shine. But because of the conditions, obviously on Wednesday, we didn't want to take. In addition, I talked with the Jolly Llama and Zumbini, and I was there on Wednesday at 5:15 in case anybody was crazy enough to show up. And I had coupons just in case they were stupid enough to show up in the middle of a tornado to get a free class. We were going to give them a coupon to another class. Thankfully, everyone had good sense and did not show up, but just as a precaution, I just wanted to make sure that, if they didn't show up. We also reached out if anyone called into the township from now until tomorrow, and if they were concerned that they were not offered the class which we promised we would, we have that coupon still available. But that was just, to make sure that we didn't feel that anyone felt that we abandoned them. But through the summer, we had a fabulous class every time some classes you had 50 people and some people at times you had 4. It all depended on the summer schedule, the heat. We did hot yoga. Some of those nights were really hot and it just was a wonderful session and people really enjoyed it. I got so many people that said even though they themselves didn't do it, they like to know that these things were available in our community, and having the Zumbini and having a variety of things is really important. So great feedback and it was really well. 13 weeks we did that. So that was really awesome.
Thank you, Sheila.
It was a great program. I
Yeah.
did it a couple times with myself and my family and my mom. and-
Cool.
Yeah, it was a great program. And
The
that was very thoughtful of you to go out there at 5 o'clock on Wednesday, Sheila. You are
I just had this
dedicated.
vision of some poor mom showing up with their kids and I'm thinking, oh my God, like we tried every way to communicate it, but we just didn't want anyone to feel like we let them down. So.
And we want to continue that next year. We've also discussed maybe adding some other exercise. So.
Because we did, 2 years ago, we did Tai Chi, we did Walk 15 classes. So we try to keep it fresh every year. And if anyone, I did reach out to Rich from our Newtown Recreation to see if there's anything in his programming that we can provide free content to the community. And so I'm always looking for new programs that are affordable for us because, it's something that we're providing to the community, but we also don't want to be taking on the expense of these things. So it's really important, but it is good for community development. So I'll see whatever. And if you guys have any suggestions or know of somebody that has a specific skill that they're willing to share, thrilled to do it.
Where could it be? Flower arranging, right? We could do anything, right?
Yeah, anything in the parks
Yeah.
that's fun, our thing is, it has to be open to everyone, with no cost to them, and that we make it inclusive and we make it fun and there's no judging. So whatever your skill set, whatever your abilities, we want to make sure whether you're proficient at this or you're not, you're given an opportunity to just do your best.
One thing I thought of recently, getting of shade. Also, hydration is important. And so we were talking about the water dispenser.
Yes.
And that was going to be actually a
Drexel
gift
Lodge.
for Drexel Lodge, right? You think that person might have some interest in having a water dispenser at Brookside?
And so that wasn't a gift, that was a township.
We're gonna pay for that.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought there was somebody who.
No, someone gifted the bee garden.
Oh,
And there
I'm
is some
sorry.
other money available. We discussed using something, doing something with that, but
How much was the water station?
it was.
Oh, you spend a lot because you've got to bring in the water. There's a lot.
It was
of
like 2 or
That's
3.
why we were doing it at
Drexel
Lodge,
Lodge.
because the water's
Right.
already there.
Yeah.
Um,
You have no water at
Yeah,
At
we,
Brookside.
at Brookside, we'd have to bring the water in. There's not a lot.
To drill a well.
You can tap in
We would tap off the.
of St. Albans and ask them.
Over at, I think we could come off of,
St. Albans Swim Club.
or even,
Right in the street.
I draw a blank.
Brookside.
Richmond?
Brimar Avenue.
Oh,
yeah.
right.
And come in. We have ways to do it. We just have to figure out what it would be, but, It's just that we would have to do that. It's the reason why we picked Brooks, or we picked Drexel Lodge initially is we've got the bathroom right there. It's
Yeah.
easy to add the water fountain.
Yeah.
And it's used a lot, and we offer exercise there.
Yeah,
So-
sure.
It is the premier
It
park.
was
But
just,
I love the idea because I
Just
think
the
we,
thought.
ultimately, I'd like to see at least water, potentially even bathroom
Bathrooms.
facilities at most of our parks so that people can go and enjoy them and they're not constrained by how long the bladder can last.
And also environmentally, it's better for them not to be using water plastic bottles, but using, reusable containers. So that's also a good environmental thing.
So I think we're still kind of planning that. We're just not sure yet. I don't know that the budget's still going to be there. I think we
The
did
budget's
something.
there, it's not an issue, the budget, we were kind of holding off because of COVID, we've shut all the water fountains down. We haven't opened the back up yet, so that is the biggest thing, we don't have a way, particularly at the park, to make sure that it stays clean, and so that's the key right now.
And then the Walk for the Wounded event is going to go on September 18th at Drexel Lodge Park, 12 to 6. So they're asking for support. I have Megan Gondak and myself are going to be there. If anybody can just come, either clean up or if you want to serve food, anything, even a couple hours, just let me know. Send me an email.
At the same day that the
So gather in the
The
circle.
circle
Yeah,
is-
the gather in the circle starts at 5, I believe.
It does, 5 to 8.
So we're going to ask the concert, Walk for the Wounded concert, to announce the gather in the circle event there as well.
there's actually going to be beer in the beer garden.
There is,
Yes.
Will they have it on the 18th?
yes. That is the date.
That announcement needs to be crafted carefully. Because it would be really great to have a crowd go from Drexel Lodge right over to the Albans Circle.
Yeah,
I think we're going to get a really good crowd from St. Albans, just the St. Albans area.
Yeah,
We
let
promote
me-
that well.
I just want to be very clear. The beer garden is only on the 18th. It's not every
Yes.
day for the 3-week.
Yeah.
And the beer garden is not free.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on that.
And the beer is not free.
And the beer is not free.
Walk for the Wounded.
But yeah, it would be a great opportunity for people to go from there right to there.
6 hours.
And also on the 18th, remember you were going to mention the EAC event that morning?
oh, yes, the rain garden thing. Oh, yeah. EAC is doing a rain garden as well.
Really?
And where's it at, Sheila?
The Township Building and the the Petticoat Field. There's going to be 2 rain garden installations.
It's the Little League. field.
Little League Field, 2 rain garden installations with perennial plants. There'll be things, and it's a huge event. So the town, they're obviously looking for any volunteers. I know you guys are tapped out with the concert that day and with, but if anyone in the community or whatever is also able to help,
What time is that?
that is going to be, we should be there by 8:30 and 9 o'clock. It'll be 9 to 11:30. And there'll be 2 rain garden installations. And also there is an event on Friday, but that will be also planning a rain garden. But the Crum Creek Watershed will be hosting that, and they're bringing corporate volunteers that afternoon on the Friday. So if you're in the area, if you want to hop in, see what they're doing, but that's Crum Creek will handle that event.
The Crum Creek event is where?
Friday here, the same,
Here.
they're doing half the work on
Okay.
Friday and Saturday is the other
At
half.
the township.
Township and the.
Yeah, so one of them's right out here, right in front of the flagpoles.
Right.
That's where the one rain garden is going, and we're gonna sign it and let people know what it is, and hopefully encourage people to put rain gardens in their yards. And then the other one is up at the Little League field.
And that's on the 18th as well.
Yes, like we couldn't possibly plan anything else on the 18th.
But that's morning.
Yes, that's the morning.
We're keeping George's staff really busy.
Yeah.
Actually, it's perfect. I heard his schedule. It's perfect alignment they'll be here at like 5:30. They're going to do this. So it's a full day agenda for them all.
George just can't have lunch that day.
Yeah, he won't be able to breathe that day.
And then Community Festival at the Railroad Museum. I'm not
So-
sure.
I just wanted to, I put this on because typically the Railroad Festival, I think is the first weekend in October.
Right.
And typically they're at Drexel Lodge, and so because it's a park, I wanted you to be aware, they're gonna be open like they have been all summer. They tied their schedule with the Historic Society's schedule, when they're open, their buildings. The Railroad Museum has been open at the same
Awesome.
time. But typically, the first weekend in October, they do their festival, but because of all the things that have been going on, particularly with COVID, they opted not to do that this year. And so I just wanted to let you know they weren't doing it, but it's still open on this, I think it's every Saturday between now and then.
And I was going to ask, I did ask Fran Francis to send me, asked me to send an email to her to have the Railroad Museum open from 12 to 6 if they can. That time. Oh, and something else that the art teachers came up with during looking at the mural at Drexel Lodge Park was there's plywood that's in some of the railroad cars. It's gotten old and it just doesn't look
yeah.
nice. So they're suggesting maybe if there's going to be leftover paint, maybe just use some of that leftover paint to paint something on those,
Awesome.
brighten up the park a little more there.
Nice.
It's just a thought.
Very nice.
This next section, you may be wondering why we put this in here. Mostly just so you would know, particularly at Drexel Lodge, the use that it's getting over the next, we're going to put in the next 2 months every time you meet, just so you know when people are renting or have scheduled out the park. And more of it's informative, but something for you to look at and see how it's being used. Because, one of the things we look at is how's it being used? Is it, as we invest money in the parks, we want to make sure that the parks are being used when we put the money into them. And so this is a park that gets used quite a bit, and I thought it was important for you to see. And these people are actually reserving the pavilion specifically. And so, one of the things that I think you'll see is that at some point, we may kind of wonder, do we add another pavilion at another location in the township? Because I think there's probably a demand for it.
Yeah.
There's times we turn people away when they ask, we would like to use the pavilion, and we don't have the pavilion available. And so that may be something that this group would want to think about, and that may be something, maybe Brookside is the right place, to do something like that, or maybe another pavilion at Drexel Lodge. I don't know the right answer, but it's something that at some point we want to think about.
I noticed there's no religious service here. I think it was last Sunday, I rode through the park and there was a church service being conducted underneath.
Oh, really?
They may be just stopping in and doing it. These are only if they've reserved it through us.
Oh, okay.
There's
maybe
things that happen out there all the time that we don't know about.
Uh-huh.
These are people that have actually come in and reserved it for a specific time or for a specific day.
Hmm.
And it's just to let you, it's more to let you know and see how it's being used as we make decisions about maintenance and what to do at what locations.
And so one thing that's not on the agenda, I just want everybody to think about is the concert for next spring. We're going to hopefully have that. Start planning that funding and all that.
What month would that be?
Usually May, right?
Yeah, there may, but remember was it Ian Blank remember when we went head to head between our last vote between the two, and you had another band that Peter and everyone loved, and we were debating as to,
I'll go back and
Yeah.
look,
and it was
Some
picking out the
people-
concert venue.
Some people aren't even playing anymore. So.
Okay. I suggest we go younger. I mean, definitely go younger, like in terms of interest, making sure we get interest to somebody in the 30s or 40-year-old would enjoy, especially. Just making sure that we tap into the younger audience, I believe.
although our median age is what?
54?
Something like that.
It's
Right.
old.
Well, let's get something that everybody would enjoy. I think would be the theme would probably be,
All right, I'll see if I can gather some stuff and I'll
There
send
was
it.
a Billy Joel like cover band at Rose Tree Parks. That was kind of a one for all ages, maybe something along those
They're,
lines.
they're actually very expensive. The cover
Yes.
bands are much more expensive than you would think. So
Yeah. Who was it?
when you
The
look at them,
newspapers. Remember the boys I told you about the music director who told me that I think they're called the Newspaper Boys, and it's the band that she says they're like top notch in terms of they do these and throughout parks in this area and in other communities in Bucks County, Chester County. You were familiar, I think they were like a Beatles,
oh, yeah,
I think they were called the Newspaper Boys or something.
something like that. Yeah,
Yes.
I think I saw them in Havertown.
Yes, they're apparently very well received.
I mean, they're pricier than you would think.
I thought they were like
They're smaller.
1,200.
They're in the thousands, yeah. You know, and what we're used to is 12 to 16, or
Yeah, right.
$1,600 is what we know. Pay a band, so.
And you gotta get funding for that too.
Right, so we're gonna have to start knocking on wood. Just something to think about.
What did you pick it? You want to put a tentative date? Just,
I'm gonna stop
Oh.
you just for a minute, because if we start talking, this is not on the agenda.
Okay.
And if you remember, I told you,
Yes.
we have to be careful. As long as you're talking broadly, we're probably okay.
Go on
But
next
when you
month's
start getting
agenda.
into specifics, I've got it put on the next agenda for you,
Okay.
so you can talk about it.
So if anybody has any bands they think they might, just bring them next month and we'll be discussing it then. These are the forms I put. I have the forms for the budget requests.
Okay.
So I guess we're adjourned. Does anyone have anything? Caitlin?
I would ask if you have anything for next meeting, if you want on the agenda, if you know it now, let us know and we'll document it tonight. If not, just make sure you're getting it to us early enough. We're publishing the Friday before.
Okay.
So we just want to make sure we get everything.
So when it is, all right.
You know, I was thinking, it's been a little tough parking for Greer Park. Lately, I don't know if anyone's driven by, but people are parking in the street, parking all over, parking on the lawn. It's getting a little tight. So I'm thinking, you know, if anyone's coming to use the park during the daytime or early evening, right before dusk, it's a full house. So, you know, I know that in the master plan that is, you know, it's kind of in the plan, and maybe there'll be more parking spots made, or, you know, just kind of throwing it out there, that it's, you know, there's some nights where nobody can get in. In fact, the landscape guys couldn't even really get in either,
So maybe that's something we, like you were saying with the playground, maybe in advance, you know, before the stream is moved and everything, maybe the playground, maybe additional parking as well.
but what time is that? Because,
Well, I know the guys at the business next door, they park there.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple spots that are supposed to be for township
park, yeah.
parks, but I think people just kind of park there anyway. And then there's a neighbor that runs an Airbnb, and so they
Yes.
use that parking lot, and they do market that parking lot is there. And I think that's been kind of an issue.
Yeah, because I know the business is out of there usually by 3:30 to 3:45. And usually I walk by and I've noticed over this weekend, that particular house, I
They
think
were,
had
yeah, they were
they had
filming there,
6
so they had
parking
lots
spots during the
of
weekend.
cars.
At that, and that was all weekend. And I was like, where are all these people? There's all these cars, but it was the B&B, the Airbnb was using that.
Using the public parking lot.
Yep. And I believe that the condition was that because it's not, we need the sign to state specifically that there's no overnight parking.
I know at some parks they do, you know, if you really need to have, like, if you're having a guest or something and you don't have enough room in your driveway, you could phone into the police, hey, is it okay if we park here overnight, and here's our tag, so that, you know, they know. But yeah, maybe, you know, no overnight parking might be a perk, and just to help keep people out of the park when it's closed. I've also noticed that there's a lot of people hanging out and just smoking cigarettes and flicking the cigarettes in the parking lot, which is really unfortunate. And it's, it's a daily event. So maybe we could get some no smoking or, smoking fine for the park. I mean, our parks are non-smoking, but there's no signage.
So I'll go ahead and put this as an agenda item for next month for us
Great.
to look at. And I'll also, based on what you guys did, we'll look into what it would take to make an adjustment. Give you a report back.
Steve, I have a question about, isn't there a sign that says parking for park use only?
Yes,
It is for 4 spaces, I think.
Yes.
Oh, just 4?
I think that's it,
Oh.
because the other spaces Belmont has done.
Yeah, I remember.
I may be wrong, it may be 5, but I think it's 4.
I think it's 4.
Does it say that on the grant?
There's a sign and
There's
it
a
says
sign.
it about
Okay.
3 feet.
Gotcha.
We need an item to have a motion to have X amount of dollars put on the budget.
The budget needs to be, I think, what date did Rich give you as a deadline?
It's soon, so I'll have this done as soon as I can. And these 2 budget requests, I don't think we have any other budget requests at this point besides what we're doing
Brookside.
requesting at Brookside. The band that's set, we get.
We have that
funding.
money left over from before.
No,
We
we're
gotta
gonna go
raise that
knock on
money.
doors and we raise that money ourselves. And then the township provides people to help us.
Right, but then we have a carryover. We had money that wasn't used.
oh, that was paid, that just paid the last band, the
Yeah, the
last year's
Dukes of
money-
Destiny.
Oh, it's
paid
this
the
for
Dukes of Destiny,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
See, we're starting from scratch. Yeah.
I'm gonna put on the agenda budget review
Okay.
to go through. There's some monies that we put in for George to just maintain the parks. So I'm gonna let you all see what we set aside for parks and have that discussion along with whatever Wade gives us. So we'll have that whole piece. So we'll have it. If we want to make an adjustment, that would be the time to make the adjustment.
Jonathan? Sheila?
I think we're good.
We're adjourned.
Steve, are you able to identify somebody who would come, who was a preferred vendor to be able to help Wade? Sort of say, okay, we're gonna do this, this, and this, and it'll be about this amount of money?
We can look, I'll have Steve look on I know he's already started to look on the CoStar's website for some other information for us.
Okay.
I'll ask
We
him,
need a little
as
help.
he's sitting here.
I just want to put in 6 plus 6. Say whatever the construction level will be, towards you got that. 6 plus 6, 12, yeah.
The 12,000.
Yeah,
plus
so
whatever,
something around that.
concrete.
Yeah,
Plus the concrete.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of maybe umbrella and some sales.
All right. All right, I'll get a rough.
So that's what
order.
I'm saying, that somebody you'll have from the vendor would have kind of idea.
Right.
we'll see. We may have somebody that's actually going to be out for another project. I'll talk to George about it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Hey, just before we go, I have 3 boys and one of them has a laser cutter. And I just thought where we are in Newtown Square, we're kind of dead center between 4 communities, Bailey in the north, Edie in the south, Westchester in the west, Philly on the east. But he did this probably in 10 minutes, I don't know, but he made a little compass star. And I showed a neighbor this and I said, see, in Newtown Square, we're in the center of the universe.
And it's carved out?
Yeah, I just pass it around.
it's
That's great.
All I had to do was polyurethane.
That's very nice.
Yeah, I was gonna do it this way, and of course, he comes up with a better
Oh,
diamond shape.
Yeah, very
It
nice.
actually kind of fits the way the township looks. If you look at a map, We are almost a diamond shape when you look at it.
Yeah, how about that? And think of all the good traffic we get through from everybody. What is it, 14,000 go through our big intersection?
Oh my gosh.
It's not a good-
Well,